In short, the small people were like human beings, but they weren't from Earth like I was. There was a clear contradiction in opposing the human race of another planet. Therefore, my current actions were due to the enormous ethics of humanity or justice. If I opposed the small people here, then I would miss out on the achievement I needed for the ending. This was the only reason I needed to stab the blade of faith into the ground. The star stream has detected anomalies from you. Warning, be careful to avoid being hostile to other disasters. If the hostile acts are repeatedly accumulated. Dust flew up and the Japanese screamed as they lost their vision inside the dust. Oh heck! What is this all of a sudden? It was a blow filled with considerable power, so the dust didn't sink easily. A small planet's constellation is touching his chest. I was troubled for a moment. If I killed them with my own hands, I would be able to get a new scenario right away. However, the penalty for it would be tremendous. I wanted to delay that moment as much as possible. That's why, at least, Ajashi, I'll do it this time. Shin Yoosung pulled out a dagger that she had received from Yoosung-ah and stepped forward. I will deal with both of them. Can you do it? It won't be a problem. She was like Lee Gil-young. I didn't know why kids were so proud these days. Yoosung-ah would have stopped her, but I wasn't Yoosung-ah. I encouraged Shin Yoosung. You shouldn't fight for a long time. Did you hear the penalty message just now? You should handle them as quickly as possible. My options in this scenario would be wider if Shin Yoosung could deal with both these people. I had a lot to do in Peaceland. Among them, one of the most important goals was to catch the snake that Persephone mentioned. If I didn't get any penalties in advance, then I might be able to catch the snake earlier than expected. What bastard did this? Shin Yoosung ran through the dust where the voice was heard. At almost the same time, I hid myself using the recluse's cloak. It would be an invalid item if they had high-level detection skills, but these guys didn't seem to have it. Sharp magic power emerged from Shin Yoosung's dagger and moved in a half-moon arc. Uwa! The Japanese people withdrew from the dust. The earlier move that created the dust had been intentional. I missed a golden opportunity, but there was a way to defeat them without me fighting. The Japanese people were surprised when the child appeared in the dust. What, this kid? The Japanese incarnation spoke to Shin Yoosung. Kid, why are you stopping us? Don't you know what will happen if you do this to us? Unfortunately, it just sounded like a foreign language to Shin Yoosung, who didn't have the interpreter skill. What are you saying? Now the Japanese people noticed the situation. Are you perhaps from South Korea? Oh, that's right. This time, the first Korea group entered. Damn it, the first group will be huge? Their complexions suddenly darkened. Kid, get lost. We don't have to fight each other. Don't fight. Don't fight, okay? Translator's note, they're speaking in bad English. We just have to kill them. Small people, kill, okay? Translator's note, they're speaking in bad English. The Japanese said they had no intention of fighting in poor English, but Shin Yoosung just shook her head. Her sharp dagger pointed at them, and the Japanese people shrugged. Get lost or die. It is one of these two options. The Japanese started to slowly step back from Shin Yoosung. Damn, this doesn't make sense. There isn't a bounty scenario. My sponsor wants me to kill this little kid? Aren't there two of us? Did you forget the fighting power of our first group? They were clever people. Everywhere in the world, those selected for the sixth scenario were the elites of their country. In Japan, the gap between the first group and those who came afterwards was probably considerable. Similar emotions emerged on the faces of the two Japanese. Should we run away? On the other hand, strange delight spread among the small people as they watched the confrontation between Shin Yoosung and the Japanese. Why? They were shocked. A small disaster was suddenly fighting against a bigger disaster. Perhaps it is the small savior? Yes, the prophecy was right. A small planet's constellation is supporting the incarnation Shin Yoosung. A small planet's constellation has sponsored 10 coins to the incarnation Shin Yoosung. The incarnation Shin Yoosung has received the possibility of a new scenario. I watched the scene while grasping the hilt of my sword. It was a bit underhanded, but it was a way to chase them if they ran away. As I thought, things wouldn't go so smoothly. The intermediate Dokubi watched from the air and giggled. Japanese incarnations, you might think you are really disadvantaged, but are you? In any case, this damn Dokkaebi. The Japanese people realized something and muttered, "Ah, that's right. That reminds me, the first group. Didn't Asuka become affected by a mutation? The Korean people would be affected by the same thing. I'm telling you now." There is no need to tell me. In any case, she's just a Korean chibi. The eyes of the Japanese people changed after they made a decision. Both of them stared at Shin Yoosung with killing intent. "Yes, let's fight once." "I don't like children." They let out unpleasant laughs. Shin Yoosung didn't understand the words, but she immediately grasped the situation. Their blades moved as the two men slowly surrounded Shin Yoosung. The killing intent around all three people rose while the two men moved simultaneously. Shin Yoosung had raised her agility to the maximum and avoided their blades without much difficulty. However, the difference was narrow. These men might not be the best elites of Japan, but they were part of the top incarnations. I saw their swordsmanship and was reminded of a description in Ways of Survival. They used only one sword instead of two, and it wasn't the large rock style. This means I didn't need to worry about them being Miyamoto Musashi and Sasaki Kojiro, some of Japan's top swordsmen. It wasn't bad for Shin Yoosung's debut. "It will be hard for you to keep running, kid." Their aura became sharper as their sponsors let them power. The blade that wanted to cut the legs aimed at the legs, while the blade that wanted to cut the arms aimed at the neck. It was natural to step back at the attack. However, Shin Yoosung's movements were caught by the swordsman. No matter how high Shin Yoosung's overall stats, the swordsman's combat skills were overwhelmingly superior. Shin Yoosung's collar was cut, and a small line formed on her arms. I firmly held the hilt and prepared to move at any time. It was a pity that I couldn't act properly as her sponsor. "Die!" The Japanese cried out in an exaggerated tone and aimed at other parts of Shin Yoosung's body. This time, Shin Yoosung didn't try to escape. Shin Yoosung was weak in strength and lost her grip on the dagger. The Japanese took this chance to dig through the gap. However, Shin Yoosung didn't panic. The character Shin Yoosung has used Advanced Diverse Communication Level 3. Rather, she turned back and settled on the back of the monster waiting for her. It was a steel wolf. What? It was the right judgment. The basis of fighting was to minimize the opponent's advantage and maximize your advantage. "Oh!" There were the cries of the wolves as dozens of steel wolves simultaneously emerged from the forest. She had tamed so many wolves in such a short time. She really was a future beast lord. Shit! The surprised men swung their swords at the wolves, but the wolves were already biting onto their arms and legs. Fuck! These bastards! They might be weak in 7th grade monsters, but the two people would have to consume a lot of magic power to deal with them. It was truly a rewarding sight. However, Shin Yoosung was still unaware of something. This was why I warned her not to waste time. The star stream has detected abnormal behavior from the incarnation Shin Yoosung. Hostile acts against a disaster have been detected. The incarnation Shin Yoosung has been given the first scenario penalty. The penalty had finally begun. Shin Yoosung groaned as she suddenly felt less magic power. Some wolves suddenly left Shin Yoosung's control and returned to the forest. The character Shin Yoosung's body size has decreased. The character Shin Yoosung's total stats has decreased. The Japanese also noticed it. "That's it! I knew this would happen. Just a little longer." It ended up like this. Shin Yoosung glanced at me with anxious eyes. I approached behind Shin Yoosung using Recluse's cloak and touched her shoulder. Shin Yoosung's trembling subsided. "Thank you, Hajashi." Shin Yoosung understood something and bit her lips. The incarnation Shin Yoosung has been given the second scenario penalty. Shin Yoosung's body size was getting smaller. That's right, this was the result of a disaster abandoning their authority. Still, she had enough power remaining to take away the lives of the Japanese people. Shin Yoosung showed the highest agility level and approached their backs using the beast. Ah! Did she learn something from watching Yoosung? Shin Yoosung stabbed her dagger in a poisonous manner. Her dagger moved, and a man's carotid artery was cut. Quack! Ridiculous! The man paled as blood gushed from him and he fell down to the ground. The character Shin Yoosung has defeated the disaster without a name. Major contributor, Shin Yoosung. Shin Yoosung wiped the blood that splattered onto her cheek and moved on to the next target. The man was terrified and stepped back. The steel wolves rushed in a bit and bit his arms and legs. Quack! Shin Yoosung approached to cut off the man's breathing. It all happened in an instant. The incarnation Shin Yoosung has been completely derived of the rites of a disaster. The Dokubi of the star stream sees Shin Yoosung's behavior as taking action against the scenario. The incarnation Shin Yoosung has been given a third scenario penalty. The small person transformation will begin. In this scenario, a person who gave up their qualification to be a predatory species would become the prey. Shin Yoosung's body became smaller at an incomparable rate. There was a small groan as Shin Yoosung's clothes became too big and her dagger fell to the ground. Shin Yoosung's height shrank from my waist to my knees and finally to my shins. Then Shin Yoosung's body was buried in her clothes. Her stats diminished and her control became weaker, causing the steel wolves to return to the forest. A small Shin Yoosung emerged from her clothes and lumped towards the man. "Yoosung, you can stop." Shin Yoosung gasped for breath. There was a mixture of poisonous anger and grief in her eyes. There had been many fights with monsters, but this was probably the first time she committed a serious killing. "He is already knocked out." Shin Yoosung stared at the fallen Japanese man. He was lying on the floor while foaming at the mouth. I tore away a bit of my clothes and covered Shin Yoosung's body. Shin Yoosung was as small as my fist and observed her body for a while. She probably realized what had happened to her. "We have to fight them in this state?" "Yes." "How many are left?" "A lot." Shin Yoosung looked up at me with a complicated gaze. "Ajashi, did you know? We will become a small person if we are hostile to the disasters." I nodded and approached the fallen Japanese man. I checked, and he was in his early 20s at best. He was still breathing. "Are you going to use this person?" Shin Yoosung asked me. "There is a person I have to kill before I change." New messages rose as soon as I said this. Be careful to avoid being hostile to other disasters. Those who are hostile to disasters will lose the right to be a disaster. There was still a Dokubi having fun in the sky. Yes, laugh while you can. "The Starstream think that your disaster activities isn't enough. If you don't kill the ruler of Peaceland in the next hour, you will be deemed as unwilling to act as a disaster and will be deprived of the status of a disaster." I looked down at the Japanese man and slowly took off my coat. There was 1 hour remaining. In this 1 hour, I had to catch their king.